Development's YouTube channel, Quality Homes for All.
Welcome in to AvranceCorp Presents. I'm Kenai Andrews. My guest this week is a self-made man who is known for his broadcasting career on Rogers Sportsnet, where he hosted flagship programs such as MMA Connected, which later turned into UFC Connected. He then successfully transitioned over into the world of real estate, where he is currently a mortgage agent level 2 at the Sherwood Mortgage Group. So here with me today is none other than Showdown Joe Ferraro. Showdown Joe, thank you so much for coming on this edition of AvranceCorp Presents. I hope you're well as we see this year is coming to an end.
Thanks for having me on. I haven't seen you in a while. It's a pleasure seeing your face. You're bringing up some memories from MMA Connected, UFC Connected, and UFC Central. That was the final show, but big transition from that chapter of my life, or I guess you could say my past life, to where I am today. So good times.
Absolutely. And, I obviously have to ask you because, at that point, you were at the top of the food chain there in terms of programming there. Like that was a huge show. Everyone was watching those shows. And I was just curious, like, when did the idea of transitioning to something else pop into your mind? Was it always there, or did a key moment happen?
Yeah, I mean, at that time, it was a premier show. It was absolutely, beloved by the network. It was loved by the UFC, because remember, it was called MMA Connected at the time, and after a few episodes, it was the UFC that contacted Sportsnet to say, hey, we want to put those 3 letters on there. We want to put the UFC letter on the show, change it from MMA Connected to UFC Connected, which eventually, when there was a bunch of rebrands at Sportsnet, with Sportsnet Central, the new show, the radio station, they said, we're going to switch it over to UFC Central. We were the first show on the planet at the time to be allowed to have those 3 letters, UFC, as part of a broadcast. It wasn't until later on that, UFC on Fox and UFC on ESPN and all that stuff took place afterwards. So, everything was fantastic back in the day. It was a wonderful ride, but then the broadcasting rights for the UFC went from Sportsnet to TSN, and it was a natural reaction by everybody saying, "Well, Showdown Joe is going to go to TSN now. He's going to follow the UFC brand." I believed it. I firmly believed it. I thought I had set a great foundation and a great example for myself and for the sport itself, that I was the premier guy, or analyst, anchor, host, that could take the product to the next level. Unfortunately, at the time, the executives at the other network didn't see it that way. I heard story upon story upon story upon story as to why they weren't going to bring me over. Nothing to do with my reputation. It was political. It was business related, and it didn't make sense because they had hired previous talent from Sportsnet. So I tried and tried and tried and tried again to see what we could do, but the door kept getting slammed in my face, and I couldn't figure out why. We had thought about doing some stuff over in California with Fox, ESPN. There were tons of discussions that went down. But while all of that was going down, all the money that I had saved, I wasn't generating income. There was no income coming in. So all that money, picture bank account, it's this big. And as time went on, your savings. I'm living off of my savings, and I
Right.
young family.
Right.
I had my son to support, had bills to pay with my wife at the time, and I'm like we have stuff to do here. And then I realized this isn't going to work. I ended up getting some other gigs in the MMA world, but it was, if I remember correctly, it was a 93 or 97% pay cut.
Wow.
Like it was literally like almost peanuts. It was just like I can't survive on this. Nobody can survive on this. This is literally a part-time job now,
Right.
from 6 figures to barely anything at the end of the month. I got to figure this out. So it was brought to my attention that, hey, you know what? Why don't you try getting into the mortgage broker space? You're good with money. You understand math very well. You're gregarious. You're good with people. You've got the personality to get out there. You're a great seller. You provide value. Why don't you think about this? So I researched it a bit, took a look, and said to myself, I could probably do this. I don't see why not. I got my mortgage license. Unfortunately, started with a brokerage that didn't work out. I wasn't ready to really take off my mortgage career, but neither was the party that I was working with. Understanding who I was, transitioning, had these lofty expectations for me. I said, I don't work that way. You got to bear with me. I'll get there. And then was strangely and ceremoniously released to my comedic laughter. To my laughter, I said, okay, and that's not going to end well for you. And ended up signing up with another brokerage. Had a wonderful time there. Hit a ceiling, and then moved over to Sherwood Mortgage Group, where the sky is the limit. There's absolutely no ceiling on our income. We can do whatever we want, however we want, as long as we're servicing our clients. And then from there, I became an award-winning mortgage agent in multiple different categories every year. So no complaints there.
That is amazing. So then tell us exactly, or tell us more about your role there at Sherwood. I understand you're a level 2 mortgage agent, and you primarily, secure mortgage financing for a lot of first-time home buyers and stuff, but I'm sure there's a lot more involved.
Yeah. So as a mortgage level 2 agent, so you've got basically 3 different categories when it comes to mortgage agents. You've got your level 1, level 2, and your broker. Level 1 is in essence similar to level 2, but at level 2, you can sell private mortgages. You can, facilitate private mortgage transactions. And then on the broker side, when you become an actual broker, a certified licensed broker, there's a lot more administration and auditing and stuff like that involved, right? So it's a little bit different than being a level 2. I was going to get my broker license until I was told you don't need it. You're a great leader. You can be a team lead. You can have agents under you while doing your business. So that's the path that I chose. I didn't want to get my broker's license. When I saw what it entails, it's not for me. And then there's really smart and good people that have that license. It's not for me because of the paperwork. I don't have the time, Kenai, to do all that stuff. But I do have time to help clients. And in essence, what my main focus, it's kind of varied. I am thinking about doing a couple of niches in 2026. We'll see what that's going to be. But first-time home buyers, clients that have existing mortgages that are looking at renewing or refinancing. In the very worst case scenario, trying to save somebody's house, right, where there's private lending involved, right? A lot of deals for self-employed clients, because self-employed clients may not fit under the prime side where you want to get to your big 6 bank or one of the monoline lenders. They may not show income, but they may have a business that generates hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. But when it comes to tax time, they're showing, $45,000 in income. You're not getting a mortgage with $45,000 in income. So let's take a look at your 12 months bank statements, and there you go. You're generating $950,000 a year in revenue. What are your expenses? Oh, they're $200,000. Well, this is a different story. I can look at that $750,000 and change and be like, I can talk to a bank and say, here's what's left over. We can use some of this as income. How much do you need? And we go through all the legal paperwork to make sure that it fits all the regulations. And then I get deals for self-employed clients, right? But yeah, first-time home buyers, they're generally my favorite because you get to educate people, first-time home buying, down payment, what's required, and then eventually they may want to buy a second home, a cottage. They may want to rent the existing one they have at the end of their term and move into another one. So we build equity, and you hopefully build portfolios and finances for clients that have a legacy. And by the time they reach my age, they're doing pretty good for themselves.
Boardwalk empire, if you
Okay.
might say.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay, and for the record, Sherwood was founded in 2008. It's a Canadian company.
I believe so, by Anthony Contento. At the time, Athena Constantino. I know Eric was part of the group, but Anthony's the principal broker now. And they started small. It was Anthony, and he decided to leave the bank that he was working at. He brought some of the agents over. He just wanted them to trust him, and he did a wonderful job. And it's now, oh my God, 180 agents across the country he's got now, right? Like we've got agents in almost every single province. We're licensed in almost every single province. Like if a client reached out to me and said, "Hey, I live in Alberta. Can you do my mortgage out here?" Absolutely. I may not be licensed there. I'm licensed in Ontario, but we have enough parties over there, and we have what's called a small or an SMU unit, which basically assists us that have the license out there, and we can do the mortgages out there. So BC, Alberta. I think we're closing something in Quebec. We have a bunch of stuff out on the East Coast. So yeah, good times. Good. It's an amazing brokerage to be a part of. I'm never leaving this brokerage. I cannot see me leaving this brokerage. It's and when you have that kind of high quality content agents, it gives us leverage with the banks. It gives us leverage with the banks. Whereas if they're offering a 4.09 as their rate for an insured mortgage, we might get it at 3.99 or 3.89. Right.
Right.
So there's different ways that the relationship being a part of Sherwood has, and just the camaraderie, the family environment. I can call the top level agent at any time, either it doesn't matter, he or she, and I can say, listen, I've got a deal here that something is off or something doesn't make sense. And they're like, yeah, do this, do that, check with this lender, check with the insurer, bank, deal is done.
Hmm.
Right. So you can reach out to anybody at any time in Sherwood, and your deal is always going to get done. You'll always be able to help out any type of client.
All right. Well, at least I can scratch off the rumor of George St. Pierre nodding you towards real estate there. I've got that off my bingo card.
Be
Uh,
careful with George. He has
oh,
a habit of convincing anybody to do anything when it comes to business. He's a very smart guy, genuine as they come.
exactly. Shout out to George St. Pierre. All right. Well, recently we had on another luminary in the combat sports world here in Canada. We had the industry partnership and community manager over at the Grand Valley Construction Association, Mandy Bajol, and she graciously shared with us some of the thoughts and observations from her members, boots on the ground there in the skilled trades section there. And I just wanted to play you a few comments that she had on the show. Here we go. It's a few comments from Mandy Bajol. They say that boxing is a euphemism for the game of life. And our guest here today at AvranceCorp Presents has definitely lived that life. We watched her transition from oh my goodness, is it 11-time national flyweight champion here in Canada over to the Olympic stage, where we saw her compete in the Rio and Tokyo Games. And now she's transitioned over to the construction industry as the Industry and Community Partnerships Manager over at the Grand Valley Construction Association. Here with me today is Mandy Bajol. Mandy, thank you so much for coming on today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Right now, people are just nervous. People are trying to figure out, what does this mean for me? People are downsizing. We're seeing a lot of layoffs. But again, it's going to bounce back. It's just a matter of time. So a lot of what we can do right now is, how are we preparing people for what's coming next, right? I think when the lights do turn back on, everyone's going to be looking for workers. Everyone's going to be looking for those skilled trades, and we don't have a lot of them coming through the pipeline from the educational side of things. So we're trying to also focus on those pieces to how are we prepared using this time to think about what the future is going to look like.
All right. That was Mandy Bajol basically saying that there's a lot of uncertainty that her members are experiencing there. And, her members using the time to upgrade their skills and basically prepare themselves for, anticipation of a more active 2026. What are you seeing from your boots on the ground in the mortgage sector there?
Oh, she's bang on. She's absolutely correct. There is uncertainty on so many different levels, especially what's happening with south of the border, how that economy is working, who's in charge over there, the uncertainty with the tariffs and whatnot. It's affected everyone and everybody. As much as we're trying to say no, 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 it's there. It's there. Sentiment in the market has always remained. The Bank of Canada, who's notorious for keeping us safe, keeping us in line, they do a good job, no matter how much we can try and say we don't like them, right? Between, if I'm not mistaken, Bank of Canada, New Zealand, and Australia, they've always nailed it, right? They've always nailed it. So we're as much as we're not happy with the current rates right now, what's happening south of the border and the uncertainty that's happening up here, whether it's inflation, whether it's unemployment, it all has an effect in the mortgage world and how those rates look. Because if inflation is high, the rates are probably going to be high. If unemployment is low or high, it affects the rates. It all depends. When we get inflation down, which we have, once inflation gets down, the rates start dropping. And there was the old adage, when it's low rates, it's high house prices. When it's high rates, it's lower house prices. It's a different world for buyers and sellers. This is, I think, one of the few times in history where we're not seeing that. We're still relatively, quote unquote, high rates. They're not high rates. Just people were so used to the pandemic rates in the 1.3s and 1.4s that there was a big, huge sticker shock with everybody renewing now in 2025 and 2026 in the 3s and 4s. But if you look at the average over the past 25, 30 years, we're okay. We're actually okay. People got too accustomed to that 1.4, 1.3, 1.69 variable. They just got very comfortable with that after 5 years, the world changed, the landscape changed. So there is uncertainty. In 2026, from the economists that we've spoken to, we just came back from an exceptional annual event in Niagara with Sherwood Mortgage Group, where all the agents fly in from across the country. We have an award show. We always have an economist or two, as well as some very high-end presidents and VPs and directors from banks that come in and discuss the current market and what they're seeing for 2026. And I can tell you this, never have they been wrong. For those that have come to Sherwood, every economist that we've had has pretty much nailed it, pretty much nailed the prediction. So what we're looking at 2026 is similar, or early 2026 to mid 2026 is similar to what we're seeing right now. They're anticipating a tempered spring market, right? I want to be the one that says the spring market is going to be awesome. But I don't know, right? We just don't know. A tempered spring market, because there's going to be so many renewals coming up, and the renewal shocks. Remember, people in 2026 are renewing 5-year mortgages from 2021, pandemic time.
Right.
So people that were at that 1.4 or 1.3 are going to be renewing at current market rates, which are sitting in the low to mid 4s. So whatever amount of money that they put towards that mortgage, you better hope it wasn't just interest only, or principal was paid down, because that balance now after 5 years is now going to be paid at a much higher amount, whether it's monthly, biweekly, whatever payment terms they have. So yeah, 2026 is going to be an interesting year. And then for the real estate market, we'll see what's going to happen with the Bank of Canada, with if there's any more cuts, if they're stabilizing, if they're keeping it as is. I don't think they're going to raise it, but don't ever let anyone tell you, to anyone watching this, don't let anyone ever tell you that they know mortgage rates and that they know the pattern and stuff like that. It's hundreds of people I have spoken to, far more experienced than me, that have all been wrong. Okay. Nobody can predict it. We go, no one could have predicted the pandemic. And everyone thought when the pandemic happened, oh no, mortgage rates are going to go through the roof. It went the opposite way. They plummeted. They absolutely plummeted. And then the Bank of Canada flat out said, we have no reason to raise rates. Rates will remain low until further notice. And in the blink of an eye, they skyrocketed up, right? So I don't buy what a lot of people say. Just it's situational. Day by day, month by month, quarter by quarter, we go with what we have. So in 2026, all signs are pointing to a tempered spring market, and then hopefully a pickup in the summer and fall. So we're all going to cross our fingers. Everybody wants volume. Everybody wants to be busy. Everybody wants to see a stable market. But again, let me wrap up with what I started with. What's happening south of the border is a problem. It's a problem. So it impacts us a lot. So.
Right. I think, as you mentioned, a lot of eyes are looking to see how that gets resolved. A lot of eyes on the prime minister and the government to see how this thing rolls out. Kind of like a, Brock Lesnar versus Shane Carwin here.
Right? Yeah.
UFC 116 or whatever it was. Now, but what do you say to the clients? Because sooner or later they're going to come knocking, and they're going to be interested in buying. Somebody's going to be interested. How do you calm them down? How do you reassure them? How do you position them properly for what you feel is coming ahead?
It's all about the education. It's all about the put yourself in their shoes, right? What would you want someone to tell you? And don't be a yes man, right? Like don't give them answers that are going to make them feel overly confident or overly comfortable. Give them the truth. Tell them the truth. This is the market that we're in right now. This is what's potentially on the horizon. If we're going to do a mortgage right now and you're closing within 90 days, and every client's different. Like every client profile is different. And sometimes I'll get a young couple, and they'll like, we want to buy a condo and we're going to sign up for 5 years. We want a 5-year mortgage term because that's the lowest rate. And the first thing I asked them, I don't know if it's offensive nowadays, but I asked them flat out, getting married? Yep. Okay. Moving in together? Yep. Plan on having kids? Absolutely. All right. You want to be in a condo with a child? Not sure if anyone ever told you, but when you have a child, that's another human being in the household or the condo that has their own furniture, that has their own clothes, that has their own boxes and boxes and boxes of diapers and formula. That condo is going to get really, really tight. So do you really want to do a 5-year deal? Let's take a look at the 3-year deal and if it's affordable. If it's affordable and you still have a bit of cash flow at the end of the month, well, hopefully a lot of cash flow, but if you have cash flow at the end of the month, you're in a good place, right? Everybody wants a perfect life. They're sitting there on the beaches in a beach hut in Bora Bora. Well, we all want that. But the reality is we live in Canada. We live in Canada, so we have to take things one step at a time. Make sure that you're employed. Make sure you've got money coming in. Your mortgage is affordable. Your family is taken care of. There's food on the table. So my job is to take a look at those finances and say, okay, young couple, or could be a first-time home buyer. A guy wants to leave his parents' house and he's saved up $170,000. He wants to buy a home. He saved up $25,000. He needs a gift letter or a gift from the grandparents or the parents. There's always ways of figuring it out. And then we take a look. Do we need a cosigner? Can we get a guarantor? Right? At its core, I want people to be comfortable when they make these decisions because there's nothing that makes me happier than seeing keys being put into someone's hand. Right? Here you go. You're a first-time homeowner. Perfect. Let's go. Let's get you into this place here. I'll take care of your finances. You take care of the moving and unpacking. Right? So it's you want to make sure people are comfortable. And then I do my follow-ups. Within 30 days after, or the journey up until the mortgage, I'm with them along the way right up until they get the keys. Then I follow up in 30 days. Then I follow up in 60 days. I follow up in 90 days, 6 months, 1 year, and then we do on the anniversary. Right. And then right before they're about to renew, I contact them out 90 days out, say, hey, your mortgage is renewing. You're 90 days out. Let's not wait till the last week. Let's see what your bank is offering now. And you need to reach out to the bank. Because if you think the bank is going to reach out to you, even though they legally have to, they won't. Right. Or they will, but on their terms. Right. Okay. So let's take a look at what they're offering. And then we get into the whole renewal process. Right. Did you accumulate debt throughout the term? I got $75,000 in debt. I made a bunch of changes to the home and put new windows in, finished the basement. Perfect. You can take that 19.99% credit card debt or that 12%, 9% unsecured line of credit debt, put it into your mortgage, and now instead of that 19.99%, you're paying 4% or 3% on all that. Right? So I'll save you money there. I'll save you $600 to $700 a month as an example right there. Right. So along that journey, it's not a one-time deal for me. It's a client for life for me.
Right. For those of you just joining in, we're here talking with Showdown Joe Ferraro, mortgage agent level 2 at the Sherwood Mortgage Group. And, that's a very good thing that you just talked about here, Joe. So I quickly want to, for those, because some people, they want to get their information in bite-sized chunks, right? So I'm just wondering, can you give us like three of your favorite tips that help your clients to save money, when trying to get a mortgage or throughout the process, whatever the case may be?
Yeah, we go by what's called the 5 C's, right? The 5 C's. I'm not going to name all 5 C's to you right now, but credit is super important. Credit is unbelievably important. So if you have a credit card, make your minimum payment. Try and keep all of your balances to below 30%. So for example, if you have a credit card with $1,000 limit, do not let that balance get above $300. Keep it below $300. If it's $10,000, keep it below $3,000. Try not to carry a lot of debt. And if you do carry debt, try and make it 30% of the overall limits. So if you have two cards, $1,000 each in limits, no more than $600 in debt, make your minimum payment at minimum. Try and pay it off at the end of the month if possible. Have two trade lines. One can be a Visa, one can be a MasterCard, one can be an Amex, one can be an unsecured line of credit. Make sure you have two of them because that's how the Equifax algorithm works. When it comes to saving money, if you want to buy a home, create a plan. Give me a call, but create a plan to start saving money. Take a look at the income you have coming in right now and start getting rid of or limiting those expenses that you could really save money on. You don't need an $8 coffee a day from Starbucks. You don't. Absolutely not. You can make your own coffee at home. You'd be surprised how much money people can save if they just do things at home. Cook your own meals. Stop buying out, right? Take that money and leave it in the bank account. I would definitely create a separate savings account. Meaning if you have a bank account that's got a checking account, but you don't have a savings account, create a savings account that you simply label as savings for your home purchase. Okay? And every paycheck at minimum, after expenses, 10% has to, whatever's left over, a minimum of 10% has to go into that bank account. A minimum of 10% has to go into that bank account. If you could put more, absolutely fantastic. Okay? Work, save, work, save. And before you know it, you'll get a good chunk of money saved up. Keep the job. So that's two. There was credit, there was savings, and the third one is make sure you're employed in the same industry for at least 2 or 3 years. Don't become an accountant today, become a truck driver in a year, and then become a plumber in 3 years. Banks look at that and do not see stabilities. Banks love stability. When they look at a client's income profile, all they want to see is that you've been in the same industry. You could start off, we'll go back to the example I gave at the beginning of the show. I was a broadcaster with Sportsnet. Let's say I went to TSN. Let's say I went to Fox. I'm in the same industry. I'm making the same money or different money, but in the same industry. So that's stability. Again, what they don't want to see is you jumping different career paths. They don't like that at all, even if the final one is the one that you wanted to get to. And if that happens, that's okay. Call me. I will negotiate and explain your story on behalf of yourself to the bank lender to say, while the client became this IT specialist, they were doing something else at a different place as they were getting educated. Maybe you're getting your education or college degree or something of that nature. So there's always a way that we can talk to banks and make the deal work. But credit is important. Savings is huge. Keep saving. And that's just pretty much the basics there. I mean, you want to make sure that you're saving that money, keeping your credit clean, and stay in the same industry if you can.
Thank you so much, Joe. I mean, there's basically no shortcuts. Like, you have to buckle down and put in the hard work, just like an MMA fighter has to do. You can't just go on the PlayStation and play UFC 20 and then call Dana White and get ready and book your first fight. You've got to put the hard work in and dedication, and then the results will follow. Absolutely. All right, Joe, we're almost out of time here, but I quickly wanted to touch on before we go, because at every stage of your career, you've always reached back and always made sure to include family wherever you go. And I know that away from the office, you dedicate your time on, with soccer, and you call a lot of games, and you are the head coach of the Stouffville Soccer Club. So can you tell us a little bit about that endeavor?
Yeah, coaching to me is beyond therapeutic, right? It's to the point where I don't do drugs, I don't drink much. Uh, it's my drug of choice. It's unbelievable. It's fantastic to be a part of a community club, which has gotten much bigger right now with our affiliation with Inter Academy Toronto. But my son plays; he's a high level player. I coach his team, but I have 21 other teams that report to me in a full recreational program that I oversee. So I'm constantly and always in my local community, working with players, working with parents, working with coaches, developing players. And it's always something that I wanted to give back, which then afforded me the opportunity to work with a professional soccer team. Right, two professional soccer teams. You think about it, one locally here in York United, now Inter Toronto, and then of course Inter Academy in Mississauga, now in Stouffville, as well as in Milan. Right, so I don't know, Kenai, for some strange reason, I always find my way with some sort of success here and there. But I do work my tail off, but just be good to people, and it will always pay back. But yeah, that gig, the soccer gig, to me is extremely rewarding. If you look at my LinkedIn or even on my social media, I specifically say mortgage guy by day, soccer guy by night. 9 to 5, I'm doing mortgages. At 5:01 until probably midnight, I'm somewhere on a soccer field, soccer court, soccer pitch, turf, futsal, whatever it may be. So that's a 7-day-a-week gig. They both are, but yeah, I like to keep busy. 9 to 5 mortgages, 5:01 till the end of the evening is soccer. So,
wow, and you can hear the soccer fans and the combat sports fans really identifying with that. That is so awesome. Well, we were out of time for this edition, Joe, but I want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your expertise and the lessons and your thoughts basically on the industry. Hopefully we can have you back on again in the new year when, I guess, as Jim Ross says, business starts to pick up and the doors start flying open.
Jim Ross, what an absolute legend. I loved working with him and Chael Sonnen in Oklahoma. Yeah,
The
those
bad
guys
guy.
were absolute classics. So thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. I know you worked your tail off to try and get me on here because my schedule, as just mentioned moments ago, is sheer and utter insanity. So I thank you for your patience and for having me on. Thank you again.
All right, Joe. Until next time, take care. All right. There he is. That's Joe Ferraro, the mortgage agent level 2 at the Sherwood Mortgage Group. By the way, if you want to contact Joe or you're interested in talking to him, all of his information is in the description of this show. So you can check him out there. But for now, this has been this edition of AvranceCorp Presents. I'm Kenai Andrews. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you back here next Wednesday. Bye-bye. They say that boxing is a euphemism for the game of life. And our guest here
This is the AvranceCorp Developments YouTube channel, Quality Homes for All.